emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda or the city's website for the meeting link. To join by phone, dial 1-929-205-6099. The meeting ID is 851-5310-4060, and the passcode is 442422. The public may also view the meeting via Channel 16. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and the Nashua Public Library. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or Channel 16, please call 603-589-3329 and they will help you connect. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods I just mentioned, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during the meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We'll start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Alden O'Brien, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderwoman at Large, Shoshana Kelly.
I think we were supposed to notify her when we were starting, so go ahead.
Yeah. We'll stand by on that. Alderman at Large, Michael O'Brien is present. Alderman at Large, Laurie Wilshire.
I'm here.
Alderman Ernest Jetty.
I'm here alone and I can hear the proceedings.
Alderman Jan Schmidt is absent. Alderman at Large, Ben Clemens. And Chairman Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I am present in the chamber.
You have, at this time, 4 members in attendance. Also, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I don't know, if not, it's just repeating it for the transcriber. The meeting started at 7:38.
Okay. And Alderman Kelly is having problems. She's in the waiting room. Nobody's letting her in. Jeff?
She's in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the attendance
All right.
again.
Alderwoman Kelly?
I'm here, I'm alone, and I can hear everyone.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, that brings us 5 members present.
We have a quorum. Also in attendance?
Also in attendance is Kim Kleiner, Director of Administrative Services, Nick Misovich, Deputy Director of IT, and Jeff Polnert, PEG Program Manager, and Rick Vincent, Chief Accessor.
All right, thank you. The first order of business for tonight's meeting is public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to be heard?
Yes, Lori Ortolano.
Okay, name and address for the record.
Yes, Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I want to speak to the information technology budget. I have some really serious concerns that we do not have a director in IT. I feel that there are a lot of issues going on in the IT department. I got a hold of policies and procedures in the last few weeks. I find them woefully inadequate, particularly when it comes to backups and maintenance of the system. There's no real discussion, no real schedule for redundancies and process as to how it's done. I found the procedures very superficial. I think you should have an IT director that is one of your highest paid positions in the city. You need a kick butt person in that seat. And you're having serious issues with emails that I was not aware of. Through Right to Know, I received information regarding corrupted emails that happened in February through the Assess Help address. I know in January, I sent in an Assess Help email regarding 2 abatements that in a Right to Know request is not recorded as being received in the Assess Help account. And I don't know what that means, but I got an explanation from legal on these corrupted emails, and they said it's been a consistent problem that has gone on with Microsoft, prolonged. Well, you know what? That's unacceptable to me. And they also did not say whether those emails were recoverable. The legal office provided an unclear, unreasonably described, and incomplete response, saying, using a lot of ifs, and I've written back for clarity on that. I don't know how you can run a city this size, be moving all your records in assessing into digital form, and not have a director in IT who is extraordinarily talented, because there are real issues over here. And I think that we need to have those addressed, and we need to understand what's going on in our IT department. Also, maintenance of records, deletion of emails, 33A. What happens with records when you have a lawsuit? The police did a major investigation just over a year ago. They said to me, nothing will be deleted.
1 minute remaining.
I think you're going to find that a lot of stuff has been deleted. And I had a Right to Know lawsuit filed in February of 2020. We're not maintaining records the way we should, and I'm very concerned.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, we'll go on to communications.
We received communications from...
There being no objection, I'll suspend the rules to allow for communications received after the agenda was prepared.
There you go. Thank you. After the agenda, we did receive a communication from Susan K. Lovering, City Clerk, dated May 5th, 2021. The reason is Organizations for Refuge and Immigration Success, known as ORIS, requests to waive vendors' license fees.
Okay.
Okay, yep.
All right. So,
I think
motion by...
Yes, I would like to make the motion to recommend from final passage, excuse me, I would like to recommend, yes, by final passage, Organization for Refuge and Immigrated Services request of the waiver for a vendor's license fees by final passage.
Okay, the communication was received by everyone. Anyone on the committee have a question or concern with the waiver? Seeing and hearing no one.
Alderman Dow, I'm sorry. We're having trouble hearing you. We're getting the feedback again, and you sounded really fast, Alderman O'Brien.
All right, the motion on the floor is we had communications from the city clerk, Susan Lovering, regarding the memo that was sent to everyone, the letter that was sent to everyone on the waiver of a fee for Organization for Refugees and Immigrant Success, ORIS, request to waive vendors' license fees. They provide food for people that need assistance in the cities in New Hampshire, and they will be coming into Nashua. So it's a fee that they would like to have waived. So you have a question, Alderman Kelly?
Nope, I heard you then clearly. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment or a question? Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, just for clarification, what is the fee that we're waiving? How what does that amount to?
The
How
fee
much
is
that?
$100.
Okay, and it's just one fee that we're waiving?
One fee.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Clemmons. Alderman Schmidt is absent. Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
That is 5 yeas, 0 nays.
And that motion carries. Unfinished business,
There is none.
new business resolutions,
There are none.
new business ordinances,
None.
tabled in committee. I believe we are going to take the budget back from the table so we can discuss the departments that we'll discuss this evening.
Okay. Therefore, before us this evening, from the table, R-20-016, for amending the purpose of the fiscal year 2020,
Wrong one.
no, that's the wrong one. Excuse me. There we are.
120.
Got the wrong number. It is
142.
R-21-142, which is relative to the adoption of fiscal year 2022 proposed budget for the City of Nashua General Enterprise and Special Revenue Funds. There will be a public hearing scheduled for 6/21/2021 at 7 p.m. at the Nashua High School North Auditorium. I would like to make the motion to remove from the table by roll call.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
That's 5 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, that motion carries, and R-21-142 is back on the table. This evening, we are going to be covering the following departments. 122, Information Technology, with the appropriations found on page 107. Department 120, Telecommunications, with the appropriations found on page 101. Department 124, Cable Television Advisory Board, CTAB. The revenue is on page 33 and 303, and the appropriations are on page 107 and 307. 303 and 307 are the Special Revenue Fund. I believe they're the pink pages at the back of the book. And then we'll also be doing Department 132, Assessing, and the revenue is on page 32, and the appropriations are on page 125. And then Department 134, GIS, the revenue is on page 32, and the appropriations are on page 129. We're going to try and have a separate session on total revenues, but if there are any specific questions relative to the revenues in these departments that you see from reviewing the pages I just mentioned, please bring them up. But we're going to focus on appropriations. The first department that we will have this evening is Department 122, Information Technology, and the appropriations are on page 107. Is there someone here to discuss the IT budget? Alderman. Mrs. Kleiner?
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for having us back this evening to discuss the remainder of the departments within administrative services. I would like to speak to one point before I turn it over to Deputy Director of IT, Nick Miservich. We have some of the most talented IT staff on staff here at the city. This past year during COVID has proved that over and over and over again. To be able to, at a drop of a hat, move a city of this size remotely and keep this city operating without dropping a beat speaks to that very talent. There are policies and procedures within IT that are general in nature. That is for a reason. There is a security risk depending on information that you would release to the public when it comes to information technology. And we have seen municipalities across the country taken under cyber attack. So I just want the board to be aware that while I'm certainly willing, I will provide the policies to any board member that wishes to see them, but that is why they are general in nature. They provide an overall high-level view. They do not speak to every specific maintenance or software that is used, or when specific procedures may be performed and by who, for good reason. And with having said that, I will pass it over to Mr. Misevich.
All right, thank you, Director Kleiner. Nick Misevich, Deputy Director of Information Technology. Just going to jump right into Department 122, which is Alderman Dowd mentioned, page 107. Section 51, the most obvious change is the elimination of the IT Director position. So that impacts 51-100, as well as the fringe benefits 52-100, 52-150, and 52-300. Moving down to section 53, we requested a new line for 53-412, the appointment scheduling services. This is to expand on the appointment schedule that's currently in place for motor vehicles. Other departments have requested this service, so we anticipate a cost of $46,500 for the year to encompass all of the departments that are interested in using this software. Since there was no other place to put it, it made sense to place it into IT's budget. And that's why that new line item is there and has been requested. Section 54, property services. I'm only going to touch on the items that increased by over 5,000 and give you the reason why. Line 54-421, copier maintenance contracts. The contracts have gone up. It's simple as that. We add more units as well, increased cost. Same thing for line 54-828. That also, we requested an increase, and that was because of additional units have been added to the lease. Overall, some of the other items have increased slightly, and also some of the other items have decreased slightly. So it's a net increase of almost 10,000 for this section. Section 55, there's a net decrease of about $1,200. This is just to get stuff in line to more line up with actual costs. Section 61, supplies and materials. We've done a decrease of line 61-615, technology equipment consumables. And again, that's to get it more in line with actual costs. Section 71, equipment. We requested an increase in 71-221 computer equipment, as well as 71-228 computer software. We have a lot of PCs that are still getting older in age, so we need to try to maintain some sort of schedule so we don't fall totally behind as we've done in the past. So we're trying to stay ahead of the curve. And again, with software, additional software pieces are being proposed to to assist us in better maintaining the infrastructure and environment. So this section, there was a requested a net increase of 37,000. In total, bottom line, we are actually about $50,000 lower than last year's budget.
All set?
All set with this section, yes, sir.
Okay, does anyone on the committee have questions for IT? Alderman Jettie.
Just a comment, my interaction with IT is, I use the laptop, the iPad that's provided to me by the city, and of course, with the with our remote meeting, certainly they've made it possible for us to do that. So I don't really understand a lot about IT, but personally, my interaction has been limited to having problems working with with my iPad, and the encounters I've had with the staff have been very helpful and very pleasant. I think one fellow named, I think his name is Adam, has dealt with me and has done a very good job. So that's a very small insight, and I just like to pass a good word along regarding him. I realize the department is much more encompassing than my little view of it, but that was a positive one. Thank you.
Okay. Questions? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. It's just a comment, Mr. Chair. Nick, you did hear Alderman Dowds and last night my complaints that in my chair, it did come back on our computer of a weak signal. So if you don't mind, can I go around the help desk request, and if you could take a look at that, and to just to see if we might need an additional router as we're getting used to this facility again. Thank you.
Yes, we will certainly take a look.
Yeah, as
Alderman O'Brien.
We both have an issue in the same spot, but I didn't have an issue when I was sitting here at the desk the night before last, or last night, or night before last. Any other questions for IT? The one question and concern that I've heard expressed from several city staff is that there are issues with email. Emails being delayed, emails not getting through. Has that issue come up to you before, and is there anything we're doing to address it?
We are looking, we're actually in the middle of a migration for the email server, going from one version to another version. And we are also in the process of implementing a new spam filter at the same time. So that might be causing some delays, but as far as not being delivered, we would have to look into that. And if someone could provide specific examples, that would help us out quite a bit so we can zero in on the logs to try to determine what's going on.
So I know myself that I have my city emails forwarded to my personal email address, and I never go into the city's email server because the messages presumably all come to me. And I don't know if they collect there and start bogging the system down. But do you know if the emails get passed through, do they get action from the pass through, or are they deleted?
It depends on how your rules are set up. So I would have to look into what rules you are. If I do it from the server level, then they are no longer maintained on the server. They just get forwarded. But if you created forwarding rules on your own, there may be some stuff that is sitting on the server still.
And I've also
I will gladly get in touch with you and review that.
I've also used your personnel pretty much before COVID when we come and talk to them about different things, and I've always been very happy with all of the service that we get from the IT department. And I think it may have been resolved because I haven't really had an issue in the past year. I think when I went in before, they may have done that where they get knocked off, but we can double check it to make sure that they're not being stored. Okay. So I think we're all set with Department 122. Next department is telecommunications. The appropriations are on page 101. Who is presenting?
I am again, Chairman.
Okay.
Hi, Nick Misevich, Deputy Director of Information Technology. The only change for account 120 is a reduction of $10,000 on line 55109, telephone voice. And this is to get the budget more in line with actual costs. We've seen that the costs have been stabilized, so we can are able to kick some money back into the general fund.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions about telecommunications from any of the members of the committee? Seeing and hearing no one. The next is Department 124, Cable Television Advisory Board, CTAB. Revenues are on page 33 and 303, and the appropriations are on page 107 and 307. The revenue on 303 and the appropriations on 307 are in the special revenue account for CTAB. Who is presenting for CTAB?
Good evening, Chair. Kim Kleiner, Director of Administrative Services. And of course, Mr. Painter's here. And he will weigh in if needed. So the revenue on page 33, the cable TV franchise fees. As you know, the city has a existing franchise agreement with Comcast Communications. That is expiring next year, and we are in the process of renewal. So a subcommittee of CTAB has been set up by the mayor. You will find a survey on the city website that is collecting information, and we are going through our ascertainment process. So with the franchise fees, the city has collects 4% of the fee, and 1.3% goes to the PEG access channel. 2.7% goes to the general fund. The money that goes to the PEG access channel through CTAB is used for our public television, and that is the budget that you will find on page 307.
It doesn't look like it's changed very much from the previous year.
No, it hasn't, sir. So you'll see a slight increase in salaries. These are unaffiliated staff. That's the annual increase. You'll also see an increase to the other contracted services, account 55699. That is a normal increase that each year to Community Media Services Group, which runs the studio on Riverside. And then some small increases in other contracted services like janitorial, server maintenance, and that's pretty much it for the budget.
So it said the appropriations on 107, but 107 is IT. So
Yes.
was that the wrong place, or is it just 307?
Yes, sir. I believe it's only 307.
Okay. That was good because I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
I did find 307 though.
307.
Does anyone have any questions relative to the CTAB budget? Anyone? No? Just one question I have. Must have had a real hard year with all the Zoom meetings and other meetings that they've had to do remotely. I know that they have done a phenomenal job with our meetings, and one thing I won't miss at some point in the near future is Zoom meetings. Although you get to stay home, but connectivity sometimes can be an issue. But any other questions for CTAB? Nope. All right, next is assessing, Department 132. The revenue is on page 32, and the appropriations are on page 125.
So good evening, Chair. We apologize. Our Chief Assessor, Rick Vincent, was planning to be here. Unfortunately, the thunderstorm didn't cooperate, and he has lost power. So I will go through it. If there's any information that you request, we can gather it for the committee if I can't answer your questions. So the revenue on page 32, it's actually budgeted revenue that was more in line when assessing was open to the public, and there were photocopies and things requested, printed property record cards, copied property record files. As you know, the kiosk is open and residents can come in by appointment. So we're hoping to see that line pick up this year, but the reason it's so small is because we were remote for most of fiscal 21. Mm-hmm. You move to the budget on page 125. You'll see an increase in wages. Part of that is the chief assessor, and the rest of it is normal annual increases. Most of the staff is UAW.
Right, and the benefits just follow along with the prescribed percentages. So
correct. Yes. So we have reduced our consulting services, line 53142. Some of that is because we now have a very qualified chief assessor. We did keep some to allow for him to hire other appraisers as he sees fit due to workload. So that's the 25 that's remaining.
mm-hmm.
We reduced the staffing services, 53452. We had 20,000 for fiscal 21 because we were short some staff. The staff is now at full staff. There are no open positions. We did keep the 10,000 should we require additional help throughout the year. There is a very small limited change, an increase in 55421 employee training. That is due to the new staff that I just spoke of. They will need to go through the state training given at the DRA. We also have a small increase in 61630. Small decrease. That is due to some of the subscriptions that we deemed that were unnecessary. And really, that's the major changes. I know there have been some questions recently that were raised on the overlay account. And we just wanted to let the board, the committee know that the amount remaining at the end of April was $6.1 million. We do watch this. This is not a budgeted item in the budget, as you all know. It is something that is generated when we set the tax rate based upon the exposure that the city sees due to abatements. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for assessing from any of the members of the Finance Committee, Budget Committee? Alderman Jettie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Kleiner, I know this is about the budget, and this is really not a budgetary item, but where do we stand with the the reassessing project? I know that we were with COVID, we stopped trying to go into people's homes. Have we given up on that, or are we going to revisit that? And where do we stand on the whole process?
Excellent question. Actually, Vision is due to come to our Board of Assessor meeting, the beginning meeting in June, to speak more to this. But we will be sending out letters to residents requesting that they schedule an appointment with us for interior inspections. So Vision staff will be going out and completing interior inspections. We cannot require it. We strongly suggest it, especially if a resident feels their value or their assessment is incorrect, or and those letters will go out early June, mid-June.
May I follow up,
Alderman Jettie?
So, where does the whole thing stand? I mean, when will people be notified of what their new values will be?
We have some time. That's going to be not until the summer of 2022. So we have, they are completing Ward 9, the exterior, now. So we will be done with the city and exterior inspections. They'll have time to go back and meet with residents and do those interior inspections. Then they will begin analyzing sales. And they'll perform that work on the CAMA model up through the spring of 2022, determine assessments, which would be more towards summer of 2022. Then August, we will have the revaluation hearings, where we invite residents in to talk to Vision about their assessments, with final values sometime in September.
Okay, thank you.
All set. Anyone else have a question for assessing? Just a couple questions. One, postage and delivery during 2021, you've got $9,592 in budget. You had $3,500, which you've budgeted for 22. Can you just address why that's so high?
Excellent question, Alderman Dowd. That will be reclassed. That is postage that is due to the revaluation, and will be expended towards the bond.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good to know. I tend to pick up on those little things when we spend a lot of money and then try to budget a lot less. Let's see, the other question I have is, when there's an abatement that's approved, the monies for that come out of the overlay account?
That is correct.
Okay, not out of the general revenue.
Correct.
Okay.
The
And-
principal and the interest come out of the overlay account.
The other general question I have, which I've been talking to Mr. Griffin about, and you may need your crystal ball on your desk, with all of the construction and development going on in Nashua, do we have and I won't ask for an exact number because I know you won't have it, but do we have a feeling that our tax revenues are going to increase in 22 because of all the new taxable properties?
Kim Kleiner, that's an excellent question. So what we've been looking at is the reduction in assessments due to abatements. And then the increase in assessed value due to growth. So the city has been very fortunate to be able to offset any reductions in assessments due to abatements, especially after the last revaluation, with growth throughout the city. We saw a little bit of growth just on the tax bills that were issued for the first half of this in May. We expect, working with the planning department, talking with community development, and looking to see what's in their pipeline, we're able to determine what we will generally see for pickup on our MS1 this fall. You have a certain delay because you have projects that are going through the planning and zoning board, but don't actually have shovel in the ground. They may have permits pulled, but they don't have any actual work. So, I mean, you generally see some lapse between them going through that process and actually being able to pick up any value on the assessing side. But they do have a substantial number of projects in the pipeline.
Yes, planning has had to go to planning boards had to go to 2 meetings a month, and their schedules are loaded. I know we've been trying to fit things in for the school project, which is tough. And yes, there aren't a lot of shovels in the ground yet, but I would expect a lot of these will have shovels in the ground in 22. Some of them may be completed in 22. But once they have shovels in the ground, there's some tax revenue that starts coming into the city from, it's progressive as they make their development grow. So, but it'd be an interesting projection to see where we're at, because they have just had an enormous amount of projects.
And of course, we're only looking at the work that is completed as of April for assessing purposes.
Okay. Any other questions for assessing? Alderman Jettie.
So your question has generated a question in my mind. So you know a lot more about this stuff than I do, but I thought that as when you talk about new projects and the value of a new store or a new factory or new housing development, that increases the tax base. But I thought that that didn't necessarily generate more income. I thought that we determine what our budget is, and then we based upon that budget, that determines how much money we have to raise, and that's kind of divvied up among all of the property owners. So if if a new housing development comes in and, further down West Hollis Street from where I live, and so now you've got, a new development with increased values. Theoretically, as that gets divvied up, my share of the tax burden goes down. The amount of money that we've got to spend is not, we first determine the budget, and then we divvy that up, according to the values that, the assessed values of all the properties, and that determines what the tax rate is and how much tax money we collect. So as new projects come in and they generate more value, theoretically the rest of us, our burden goes down a little bit. Is my understanding?
Yes, it's
Correct.
the general taxpayer is concerned about, okay, how much am I being taxed on my property? So yes, we determine what we need to spend in the budget. But if the tax revenues coming in, or if the taxable properties value increase across the city, when we set the tax rate will be lower. Just like if we had a whole bunch of businesses go away, go in the other direction. Now, I do know that there's some concern, and Ms. Kleiner can address if she wants to, but there's some concern about commercial properties value going down, but our increases pretty much we're being seen are residential. So at some point, the residential values of all those new properties, given a certain tax rate, a certain expenditure rate, would lower the tax rate. I don't know if John Griffin wants to chime in on that as well, but I know
So
that most
Alderman
people.
Jetty said it completely. So your tax base talks about how it's proportioned out. The budget that you set sets the amount that you need to bring in. Same when you have a revaluation, right? You're changing how it is divvied up, but you're not increasing the amount of taxes that are raised. It does change the tax rate normally, and it may adjust how much my property is assessed and your property is assessed, so I may pay more or less, and you may pay more or less. So there was some discussion at the Board of Assessors meeting last quarter with Vision about commercial properties, and it's something we're watching. Certainly, we've seen a number of commercial abatements. We are also watching the residential properties, and I'm sure if you look at our sales tool or the sales in the papers, they're selling a lot higher than they're assessed at. So we're watching both. We'll know more once Vision starts their analysis of sales for next spring.
Thank you. Any other questions for assessing? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to Department 134, GIS. The revenue is on page 32, and the appropriations are on page 129. And who is here to talk to GIS?
Chairman Deb, we wanted to let the committee know a little bit about GIS and how GIS is being run. So there's a GIS staff member that you see budgeted in this department, Ms. Andruskevich, who's with us tonight. There's also a GIS staff member that is located at DPW. And we work very closely with Mr. Miservich in IT. There's also a GIS committee, which consists of many directors throughout the city, the IT staff, assessing, and we determine by that committee the projects and how GIS needs to move forward for a more collaborative approach across the city. So this budget is only a piece of the overall work that's being done on GIS. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Andruszkiewicz.
Good evening.
Evening.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for having me. My name is Pam Andruszkiewicz, and I'm with the GIS department here in the city. Our department is very small, as Kim mentioned, and I'm probably going to reiterate some of the things that she just talked about. I'm a full-time employee, and I'm currently the only employee in the GIS department. But if you look at our budget narrative and you see on the organizational chart, you'll see what Kim was mentioning, the box containing GIS steering committee. And this committee is comprised of directors and department heads and key staff from most of our departments: Department of Public Works, Assessing, Community Development, Economic Development, Fire Department, Police Department, Emergency Response, and the School Department as well. And this committee meets quarterly and discusses individual department needs and goals as they relate to GIS. The steering committee guides the overall direction and administration of the GIS department, both for short term and for the long term. And while I'm the only employee to actually be in the GIS department, I'm very happy to say, as Kim mentioned, that we do have some very skilled GIS employees in the city. We have a very skilled GIS member in community development, as well as the GIS specialists at DPW. And very importantly, we rely heavily on our city IT department for creating and installing and maintaining our databases and servers, as well as for technical advice and support. So this group that I just talked about came together as the core GIS unit during COVID. I just wanted to mention that we worked with the EOC and other agencies to create maps and applications as one of our many public resources during that period. And the information that was important early on was what was open, what was closed, and what was impacted by COVID. And as a unit, we mapped everything from municipal services, medical facilities, childcare, public transportation, food pantries, just to name a few. And this group also prepared applications to allow businesses to post their status and to track volunteer hours, which would allow us to submit for state and federal reimbursement dollars. One of my most important tasks is to continuously update and edit the data layers, which are used for the city's many maps and applications. And this is really essential to ensure that the integrity of the data we provide is good. And we not only provide data to the public, but we also create maps and develop data and applications as requested throughout the city. Through the direction of the GIS Steering Committee, we are currently looking to provide educational opportunities for city staff to become more familiar with the GIS resources that we currently have available, where to find them, how to use them to their full potential. We also want to begin to discuss ways that GIS technology can help with everyday workflows within each department, and again, provide educational opportunities for staff to do that. So with that little short summary, we can take a look at the budget for GIS, and it really hasn't changed much from last year. Salaries and wages and fringe benefits are based on contract and benefit increases. So if we look at line 53-142, consulting services, you'll see that we did not expend money from our consulting line during the last fiscal year. We had escrowed funds from last year for contracts that we had with two consultants. One was for application development and the other was for upgrades to our software and our GIS servers. And both of these projects were a bit slowed down by COVID. We've paid $18,563 to date and have $20,002 encumbered by open POs with $11,435 remaining. So the $48,000 that was budgeted in the line item will be returned to the general fund. The aerial imagery services line is for the new aerial flight and images that the city has done every 2 years. And I think every department in the city will tell you how valuable these images are and how much they are used. Line 54, software maintenance, 54407. This is our software maintenance line, and this is primarily for the ArcGIS software and our enterprise license. This includes all of our desktop licenses as well as ArcGIS Online, which is where we publish data for both internal and external applications. As part of the consulting contract that I mentioned previously, we just added a new internal portal, which we are configuring as a location where we can organize and publish data and where city staff from all the departments can find, download, and use data, as well as create and publish data for their work. Line 55, training. You'll see that this line is less than it had been in previous years, and that's due largely to COVID. The fact that conferences and classes were either canceled or they were held virtually at no cost or minimal cost. Our supply line remains the same. Our equipment dropped by half, furniture and fixtures, and that's because there's really nothing that we anticipated needing in the coming fiscal year. So with that, that completes the budget differences from last year. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Questions or concerns for GIS? Alderman Jettie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, don't laugh at me when I ask this question, but, I've used your services, the GIS services, quite extensively. And, recently I was able to use the aerial feature, to locate and measure out and locate a parking spot for a new handicap parking spot on Water Street. But the other night, Director Cummings was trying to show us something, and he couldn't get his GIS to work. So he said, "Oh, that's no problem." He went to Google and was able to access a Google aerial view to show us, and it was, it looked the same. It looked pretty accurate. So, so when I say don't laugh at me for this question, but do we have to take our own photos or hire someone to take our own photos? Can't we piggyback on something like Google?
Well, first I'll apologize for GIS being down that night. We were having an issue with our server, and he could have tried for an hour and wouldn't have got it to connect. We had to do some repair. But as far as the comparison of Google Maps and photos to the GIS photos, the custom flights that we have, for one, Google Photos are only done on a periodic schedule. I'm not sure what the most recent date of them is, but we're on a schedule of every 2 years. So particularly with the development that's going on in Nashua continuously, we have new aerial coverage every 2 years. And the resolution and quality of those is actually much better than the Google Maps. The additional feature of pictometry photos is that we get the obliques so that you can basically pick an address and zoom in and look at all four sides of any particular structure, which the fire department finds particularly useful because they can see the entrances and exits. They can map things on there. There really are a lot of features in Pictometry that are maybe not readily apparent to the user. And that's one of the things with educational discussions that we're having, is just to spend some time with city staff, and I'd love to spend some time with the aldermen as well, if you'd like, one-on-one or in a session, just to show you some of the features that it does have beyond just looking at the photos themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Well said,
Thank you very
Alderman
much. Forgive me for my question.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
but-
not at all. No, it was a good question.
Yes. Nick, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I believe too, and Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, that we also get contour information.
The contour information comes from the planimetric flight, which we are doing every 5 years. Or we hadn't been, but that's the plan from the GIS committee discussions. So we can interpolate contours from those. It would be an added cost beyond what's in the contract that we have with them. We have done that in the past.
Okay. Alderman O'Brien, did you have a question?
Well, just basically a testimony coming from the fire department. I have worked a lot with Pam and everything with her division, and it has worked out. And as we sit here now in the chamber, as with the previous meeting, I may be calling you again once we get to learn the new system, because in infrastructure, we do bring up some of the things. So I thank you for that offer. But
Oh, you're welcome. I'm sure that we can develop something that will be helpful to you.
Yeah, I was going to suggest to the president, Alderman Wiltshire, that at some point when we get a little, I hate to use the word normal, and we have the chamber opened up more, that we have a training session for all the aldermen, because I think there are a lot of things you can do with GIS that are helpful to all the different committees.
I was going to suggest that, Alderman Dowd. You stole my thunder.
That's what I do.
That's what you do. I think that would be really fantastic if we could, you know,
Yeah, especially,
one evening when we don't have a meeting, we could have a training session. That would be great.
right, especially with a new chamber, you know, at the moment, we don't know how to bring up GIS on this system. One of the thing is, I had a meeting with two division directors around noontime. They both tried to pull up GIS, and neither one of them was successful. So I'm not sure who the question would be for, but is this thing running on a computer that can keep up with the demand, or do we need a better computer? Nick?
Yes, today's incident was due to our consultant trying to stage a new site, a new application. And when he attempted to do that, it actually changed the bindings on the server. So it was not pulling up our SSL certificate, which that's why no one could get it at noontime.
Fortunately,
And as far as the server resources, our servers have plenty of resources to run this application.
Okay, sounds good. All right. I think all my questions are answered. Does anybody else have any GIS questions? But I think the training, probably twofold. One, if you could meet with Donna and or the CTAM guys and figure out how we can bring up GIS in the short term, and then a training session later for the aldermen, because I mean, I use it a lot because of the building projects I'm involved in, but I know there are other things you can do with it that I haven't quite figured out on my own yet. And when I try to look up addresses sometimes, it just doesn't work at all. So it's got to be a trick there. So I think the training would be great. All right.
Happy, thank you.
Okay, so we have gone through the departments that we are going to cover this evening. So I need another motion from Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that R-21-142, relative to the adoption of the fiscal year 2022 proposed budget for the city of Nashua General Enterprise and Special Revenue Funds, be placed upon the table by roll call.
Okay, the motion is to put the budget R-21-142 back on the table. Would you please call the roll?
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
And Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 5 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, so we're tabled. Motion carries. Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, before us also this evening is a proposal pending R-21-145, authorizing the interfund transfer of $325,000 from the Broad Street Parkway Capital Project activity to the Nashua Millyard Dog Park Capital Project activity for the purchase of the property located at L Pine Street, map 77, lot 5. This resolution requires a public hearing, which is scheduled for Tuesday, June 1st, 2021 at 7 p.m.
I'll take a motion to table R-21-145 until after the public hearing on June 1st, 2021.
Mr. Chairman, I will make that motion to table R-21-145 pending removal after the meeting, public hearing on June 1st, 2021 at 7 p.m. By roll call.
Would you please call the roll?
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien. Votes yes. Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Okay. 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. R-21-145 is on the table until after the public hearing. General discussion. Any matters for discussion that anyone would like to bring up?
Laura Cajon.
No, not public hearing. This is for Alderman. General discussion.
There is no more public
There
comment on this meeting?
Right after this, there is another public comment period.
Fine, I'll wait, thank you.
Okay. Any general comments? All right. Seeing none. Public comment. Is there anyone that would like to be heard in public comment?
Lori Ortolano.
Ms. Orlano, name and address.
Sure, and then I think Laura wants to be here. Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. Just to let you know, the agenda that the public has access to does not list public comment. It didn't last week, and it confused me, and it's not on there now, and that's why I think Ms. Calhoun is a little bit confused. She was trying to figure out if we had one. Couple quick things. I do think the email issue and the IT issue is real, and I've heard it from other aldermen. And I'd like to say that I have written into the administration regarding an email I sent on January 17th with 2 abatement applications that simply never showed up. And I haven't been able to get the city to acknowledge what happened to that email. And I would like to send it in to have Nick try to figure out where did it go. Also, the legal office sent an email to myself and my attorney, Lehman, on March 17th of 2020 that we never received. Neither one of us had it. And last Friday, on May 21st, I received an email. I wrote to the city to let them know that they hadn't responded to a request that I was supposed to receive information on May 14th. I received an email from the city on the 21st, and it was backdated to May 14th. I don't know if that's because they think they sent it. But once again, I did not receive that email. And that is a big issue to me. And I have a list of other citizens who have said that they their emails were not responded to when it came to applications. So I would like to understand what's going on there, because it's, you know, ultimately it gave me a problem that ended up with me getting arrested because I was trying to get those abatement applications stamped. The exposure report, I have some concerns about. I've been getting copies of the exposure report, but it doesn't actually show the true exposure. And I'm wondering if the city does create a copy that shows the true exposure. It's a report that's showing 2021 the 2020 values, but like I have an abatement listed on there and it shows a value for a single year. But if it were to be awarded, it would be paid out for 18, 19, and 20. And that exposure is not in the table. And I'd like to find out where that is. The overlay account, my understanding is the general revenue is paying for these abatements based on the checks we're getting. And when it comes to assessing, I want to put a bug in your ear that I think this budget committee should consider outsourcing commercial properties.
30 seconds.
Yeah, and get rid of the 2 commercial assessors we have. One of them is close to retiring. I think the other one is grossly unqualified and should have never been promoted to a supervisor level. And get that as an outsourced function. And I think you would save some money in this budget and you would have a much better result with commercial properties. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Colquhoun, did you wish to provide public
Laura
comment?
Cahoon.
Cahoon. Go ahead.
Laura Cahoon.
Address?
30 Greenwood Drive. I'm a little confused because Ms. Kleiner is saying this money is coming out of an overlay abatement. And it's really funny because the last time you see that on any of the city schedules is 2011. And I accidentally found that the city is paying out of the general fund monies for abatements. And I'm up to over $3 million. So I have a very big concern about this overlay account because it's going through our general fund and it's not going to any other account. So I'd like somebody to question that if they can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing and hearing none. Remarks by Alderman? Anyone? No? We don't, no need for a non-public. Motion by Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to adjourn by roll call.
Motion is to adjourn by roll call. Would you please call the roll?
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
And Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
That's 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries and we're adjourned at 8:51 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.
Thank you.